Major funding for these broadcasts has been provided by grants from Madison Realty Capital, New York Community Bank, M&T Bank, AmTrust Title, Customers Bank, Ariel Property Advisors, Capital One Bank, Sterling National Bank, Marks Paneth LLP, Meridian Capital Group. Additional funding has been provided by grants from Amarant Bank, AVR Realty Company, Bank of America Merrill Lynch, Briarwood Organization, B6 Real Estate Advisors, CBRE, Chase Commercial Term Lending, Chase Mortgage Lending, Citizens Bank, Collins Building Services, CPEX Real Estate Services, Douglaston Development Levine Builders, Flushing Bank, Friedman LLP, Handro Properties Handler Real Estate Organization, Hodges Ward Elliott INC, Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, John Catsimatidis Red Apple Group, Kilroy Architectural Windows, Matone Group, Newmark Knight Frank, Optimum Window Manufacturing Corp., People's United Bank, Rockefeller Group, Rosewood Realty Group, RPW Group, SJP Properties, Stonehenge NYC, TD Bank, Terra CRG, the Merringore Family Foundation, and these friends. It's hip. It's the place to be. It's hopping. It's only one place in the city of New York like this. It's Brooklyn. So today, with the help of my executive producer, Ofer Cohn, we are going to do a show on what's happening in Brooklyn. As I said, my executive producer and friend, the chairman, founder, CEO of Terra CRG, Ofer Cohn. Annie Miting, who is the director of leasing at the Brooklyn AVR Development Corporation. Next, Bonnie Campbell, who's the principal of Two Trees Development. And last but not least, Mark Freud, who's the principal of Troutbrook, who's been involved with Brooklyn nearly as many years as I've been in Brooklyn, but I even grew up in Brooklyn, so I'm a Brooklyn born. So what's happening today? Talk to me about what's happening at the Navy Yard, what's happening in Dumbo, what's happening at Domino. Tell me some of the things taking place.
Well, the Navy Yard is on fire. We're about 95% leased up. We've been leasing up Building 77, which is at about 1 million square feet. We're almost done with that project. It's a manufacturing building. Ground floor is food, so it's happening. Russ and Daughters just opened up, 15,000 square feet. They'll be manufacturing bagels. A ton of really exciting upper floor tenants, Nanette Lepore, Lafayette 148, all manufacturing really cool things from 3D printers to clothing to design to robotics. So it's really exciting.
Why do companies who were Manhattan-based before decide to go to the Navy Yard or to sections of Brooklyn, Dumbo, or Domino?
I mean, number one, the rent for manufacturing companies, we're looking at a low 20s per square foot price point. There's no taxes. It's a city-owned property, so I think that's appealing for companies.
You also get REAP benefits?
Definitely REAP as well. So it's an attractive deal. And we're also a very supportive landlord. It's never going to be a development site, so tenants can really, anchor in and stay the long term.
And it's also going to be the home of Wegmans. Everybody's waiting for the Rochester-based company, Wegmans.
We're super excited.
They invade. But, Bonnie, you have another chain who's in your places. So let's talk a little bit about what you did in downtown Brooklyn.
Yeah, downtown Brooklyn, usually when we're trying to attract tenants to our buildings, we really kind of look at the character of what's around there and kind of what makes the neighborhood authentic. In the case of downtown Brooklyn, it's a different kind of environment than we normally build in kind of the Dumbos or Dominoes of the world. It's kind of more of a very commercial gathering hub. So it was the first time for us as an organization that we really looked to some of these big retailers like Apple and Whole Foods, which is what you were referring to. But it was kind of an interesting thing to try and root those two big global companies in Brooklyn and still make it a really authentic Brooklyn experience.
So how do you make it a Brooklyn experience?
Well, Whole Foods did a great
I mean,
job.
that's where my fraternity house was. No, literally, it was on that street on Atlantic Avenue over there, okay, in one of those terrible walk-up buildings.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think a couple things, innovative architecture and design, and then really kind of assembling a creative mix of uses. BAM is a good example of that. We have, Whole Foods that did a great job attracting local restaurant partners. You were mentioning ore washers on the ground floor. I mean, they really reached out to authentic kind of Brooklyn entrepreneurial companies to come and establish a mini store within a store, which made it different than your suburban Whole Foods. Apple also kind of made it a very iconic space with the design and where they are in the building and the environment there. And then we have 50,000 square feet of a BAM cultural district uses upstairs. We have a library, we have performance studios, that kind of thing. So creating a really unique mix of uses makes it something different.
Now, you have one Trader Joe's in one location. Aren't you opening up another?
We are not opening up another, but there is a Trader Joe's going north of Domino, a couple blocks from what is now Domino Park, in Williamsburg.
Let's talk about how you see it as the leading broker in Brooklyn, and only Brooklyn, as they would say.
Yeah.
Okay?
I think overall we feel the excitement of people wanting to be in Brooklyn. We're getting sort of new investors and new tenants coming into Brooklyn every day. But I think if you have to look at the market sort of like on a macro basis, on an asset class basis, I mean, from an investment sales perspective, we're starting to see the effect of interest rates rising and the cost of borrowing costs rising. There's a lot of excitement about opportunity zones and a lot of neighborhoods that are already kind of exciting to begin with are within an opportunity zone in Brooklyn, like Greenpoint, Gowanus, Sunset Park, the area around the Brooklyn Navy Yard.
I have two comments. First, on the curating of tenants, I think it's hugely important. I think we're all trying to figure out in 2019 and forward how to squeeze the obsolescence out of existing buildings and get space to be more relevant to our occupiers. If we don't do that, I think our business is doomed, or someone else is going to do it. Second point, as it relates to what's going on in Brooklyn, my comment is I think the market has matured to a point where now we're looking at two different types of cycles. We're looking at an economic cycle and we're looking at a valuation cycle. So we can all be really excited about the economic cycle, perhaps lasting for another 18 months or so, depending on what goes on with interest rates and other macro issues. And then we have a valuation conversation that's going on in Brooklyn. And when we go out and bid, or when we're looking at pre-development of assets, we're having to pivot a little bit more than we expected over the past 2 or 3 months.
Do you believe owners of property who've owned the property for a long time are becoming realistic that interest rates are rising and it's a difficult time and that they have to accept things? It's like certain retailers. I mean, fortunately, you don't have any problem in any of your space for retail tenants. But in other parts of the city, people are saying, yes, I'm going to take a lower amount because otherwise I'm going to sit here for another 2 years and have nobody in the tenancy.
I think it's becoming a little bit more of a long-term play kind of market, just New York City as a whole, but specifically Brooklyn. And the opportunity zone conversation kind of adds to it a little bit with the ability to, with the incentive to hold for 10 years plus. But what we're seeing coming into the market is people that, family offices that want to be.
You just brought up an interesting thing, to hold for 10 years plus. A lot of people don't hold for 10 years plus. I mean,
right.
Willentis, they hold for 50 years plus, okay?
Right.
But the majority, including yourself being an investor, how many properties have you held for 10 years plus?
The answer is, in order to make sure that deals are working in today's valuation environment, you have to spend more time on the residual and figuring out the duration of the hold. And I think what's also happening in core markets, including Brooklyn, is you also have to spend a lot more time operationally on the deal, whether it be new development.
But let's go back to my question. When I met you, let's say 20 years ago, and you were in Brooklyn, you were doing a lot of things in a neighborhood.
It wasn't 10 years. It was probably the 3 to 5 to 7 years, but to Ofer's point, I think you have
Yeah,
to go
I mean, I think-
longer because
Yeah, promote-driven investors in this market, where the fears of sort of where we are in the market cycle, promote-driven investors and buyers are having a really hard time sort of underwriting, because they don't know exactly when they're going to exit. Where family offices, TF Cornerstone just made a huge acquisition across the street from our office. A portion of the old Pacific, the entire Pacific Park, 2 pads of Pacific Park. Total.
But they are a family that has a hold period. They're not a fund. They don't have funds have a lifetime.
Right.
5-7 years. Okay, it's a different world.
But these are the players that we're seeing right now making the sort of like the biggest plays. And so even if you sit here in this room, I mean, Two Trees and the Walentis family has been a very long-term owner. And the Navy Yard having the ability, the stability to know, listen, we're here for 99 years.
I think the Dumbo story and the Navy Yard story are unbelievable, because even if I look in the evolution of the time from my first show in November of 2001, we didn't talk about the Navy Yard. Dumbo was talked about, but it was a different market. There were tenants still paying $4 a square foot because David had given them the rents at certain markets. It was a different world. There wasn't Brooklyn Bridge Park. There wasn't all of the, people said the Navy Yard 18 years ago. It's too far. It's not. It's inconvenient. It's a schlep and everything.
I think that speaks to your earlier question about, why are companies locating here? And I think to add to Annie's point, it's not just because there's cheaper rents and, the companies are being pushed out of Manhattan. It's because their employee base lives here. So we hear from companies all the time. You think about like Vice Media and companies where their whole employee base wants to be in Brooklyn. They choose to be in Brooklyn. They are in Brooklyn. So the companies are rather responding to that.
Right, and if you look at it this way, when Mark built in Boerum Hill a hotel in Brooklyn, it was at the beginning of the hotel cycle.
Yep.
When the Wythe Hotel was built, it was over there at a different time. 10 years ago, there was not a need for a Wegmans, okay? When Whole Foods came out in the Gowanus, it was an unusual place.
Yeah.
So there's been a major evolution, and I think definitely what you're saying, because where people are living and working.
But there's still a difference between the valuation of a condo in Brooklyn as it is relative to a Manhattan condo. And I think that valuation, if you take out the buildings that are going up along the water, you still have a disconnect there. I would say that in most of Brooklyn, call it the center, it's around a 1,400-ish number, and you're solving to perhaps 25% greater or more in most of Manhattan. And so there still is a value proposition to an extent.
When we talk Brooklyn, portion of East New York has not really been, nothing has taken place. Part of it is because of the transportation, the lack of the subway system over there. But East New York has great opportunities. Now, if you look at the Reverend A.R. Bernard, he's now building with Gotham close to 6,000 apartments over there. So there's going to be apartments over there, and I think that's going to change the need. Also, you're going to have more industrial property in Brooklyn. You're going to have certain more retail.
Yeah, industrial is actually an interesting market segment because, there's the sort of new manufacturing, the maker space, but there's also a tremendous amount of need for last mile distribution, which we've been seeing in the last 12 to 18 months, and there's just not enough acreage that's controlled or contiguous or controlled by a specific owner to provide those distribution centers. And so
it has a big footprint, that last mile distribution, and it is, as you say, hard to find the proper place. And the way that our economy still relies on deliveries, and maybe more so.
If we talk about long term, how long did it take for Domino to be taken into effect? And for my audience, explain what Domino, the project
so
is.
The Domino Sugar site was, Domino operated there until 2004. They were still making sugar cubes on that site. They sold the site to a development partnership that spent about 8-10 years taking it through an entitlement process, getting it rezoned to residential. Kind of right when the markets crashed, and the team kind of fell apart, and our organization purchased the site in 2012 didn't love the development plan, figured if we were going to spend 10 years, think about the hold period, spend 10 years executing this thing, we want it to be something we were really passionate about and something we thought would kind of become a real neighborhood. So we went through a new entitlement process, broke ground in 2014, and we're bringing a kind of a new building or a new feature online every couple years. Domino Park opened last June. We've had almost 1 million visitors to Domino Park. It's really changed the way that waterfront looks and feels and acts. First building is fully occupied at this point. So
When completed, what's the total project going to have?
it's about 3 million square feet. It's somewhere between 2,500 and 3,000 apartments, 600,000 square feet of creative office space, the 6-acre park, neighborhood retail.
The 600,000 square feet of creative office space, some of that could go to a Block 77, right?
Yeah, here's
Buildings.
here's my competition.
No.
right here.
Some of it can go to Dock 72, okay? Some of it can go to
Admiral's Row.
Admiral's Row.
Yeah.
Okay, so there.
Yeah, there's there's a big, with 25 Kent opening, there's some big question marks about kind of what the tolerance is for a size of tenant. We know that there's a bunch of small, creative, startup, entrepreneurial tenants that want to be in Brooklyn, office tenants. The question is, are some of the bigger creative companies?
So here's a good question, which nobody really talks. How much square foot is the largest tenant in your properties in Brooklyn and office tenants or manufacturing tenants?
Lafayette 148 occupies a full floor of 70,000 square feet in our building.
So that's the largest.
That's the
70,000.
largest.
But the typical tenant is what?
3,000 to 10,000 square feet is probably the sweet spot.
3 to 10,000 square feet takes a lot of time to lease up. During.
And that's really the Brooklyn tenant market.
And
as
frankly,
you can see.
it functions more like a residential property. You do short-term leases without credit. They're not credit tenants. You're doing kind of a vanilla box build out for
Yeah.
them. It's a lot like residential rental apartments.
I think the more turnkey you can provide the tenant,
They're
the quicker
small,
the spaces
right,
are
they
going to
don't have
go.
the
And actually,
capital.
with Admiral's Row, we're carving down the floors to 1,400 square foot units, and we think those are going to
1,400?
fly.
Wow, they will.
Because
So what about,
especially
okay,
startup
We
companies.
do know about WeWork coming into the Brooklyn Navy Yard into the new building. What do you see in general in your own properties, and what's your own thoughts about this, all of you, of the co-working concept today? Okay, because it's changed, it's evolved, it's become, some of it's under management contracts, which are like hotel. Where do you see that with regard to Brooklyn?
I think it basically changed the office market, the office leasing market. And I think everything is basically becoming a function of managed space, right? And landlords are responding to this idea that, tenants want turnkey, and we're getting these emails all the time from potential tenants. We want a turnkey space that we can move into that's pre-built. And tenants want to move into a market quickly and operate
but
versus
in
build out their
today's world,
space.
okay, if Mark was building moving spaces, he might not move and have a conference room because he doesn't use it all the time. So there's a different need today, okay? That's why managing the property by a company is different than the WeWork office sharing space.
But it's basically the same, right? So WeWork could become the biggest landlord, and the biggest landlord could become the biggest WeWork. It's basically a confluence of, it's going to become the same concept, because the real trend is the working environment is becoming smaller teams that need to sort of get on their laptops, on their phones really quickly and do their work, versus trying to figure out what they're going to be working on and what office space they need. They just need to move quickly.
My Apple, which is not in my hand anymore, is shiny. But what happens, and I still remember your fellow Israeli Ofer Yardeni being on a panel with me after the recession. Okay, people now move into co-working space. People do co-living, and all this situation. But when the world is difficult, people move back to mommy.
Actually, WeWork and co-working space was created during the recession, and it was a response to more entrepreneurial small businesses need to operate on a very lean kind of basis and have a month-to-month lease versus make a commitment on space build out.
But I'm hearing over here the great opportunity in both of your tenancy that you're giving them short-term leases that they can expand and they can grow the company.
Yes, but there's a lot more of them. So if, to the extent that a few of them don't work out, you don't face this enormous vacancy factor, right? So it does operate a lot more like a residential building. Even the amenity package that you're running looks more like a residential amenity package. It's kind of, like you said, we are all the WeWorks now.
And I mean, we will see some large footprint tenants coming into Brooklyn, sort of following the footsteps of Amazon. We will see this in the next 12 months. And we couldn't see it before because there was no space available for them. And now there's like 3 or 4 buildings that can accommodate
Let's be
them.
realistic. Amazon, we talk about Long Island City, but if you look at the FANG companies, Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Google, all of them go into different areas. I would not be surprised to see all the 3 out of 4, I'm not sure about Netflix moving into Brooklyn yet, but I could see the other ones all have a need for space because they also have the quality of the workers that they're looking for. The employee base, as you were saying before, is in Brooklyn. So here I asked the developer who's been involved with Brooklyn for all these years, what do you see as an opportunity for you in Brooklyn?
We're looking at the for sale micro units as perhaps a viable asset class to go after. I think the problem that we're finding is it's always difficult to be a first mover. The rental market seems to be somewhat robust for micro units, and it seems to be something that the residential brokers and the consumer is interested in embracing, but we're not totally clear if that translates to a sale market for micro units. And the second I guess, aspect of understanding asset classes is the sharing economy that we just talked about, right? So we talked about it from a perspective of office. And so the question is, how deep is it and what do you need to do to amenitize a building in order to create the sharing, community, residential community? How big of a amenity package do you have to put together? What does it look like in several years from now when you're actually finished with construction? Do you have to put other components that are in that are not presently in the market today? And so that takes a lot of time to figure out. And it's usually, by the way, done better in Europe or other parts than the States. So it's spending time overseas in order to figure out what you can bring back to the States and learn from and perhaps make better.
The biggest problem that we have in Brooklyn and other parts of the city is our transportation.
I think there's a lot of momentum there. I think the mayor's office has indicated a commitment to really fleshing out whether it's a real possibility. So I'm very optimistic about the likelihood of the BQX. I don't know how fast it will happen, but certainly that type of solution that, responds to the way that people live and work today. They're not necessarily all commuting into Manhattan from Brooklyn. Certainly going to be very, very important.
I think city planning in the borough of Brooklyn has some phenomenal people that are really studying, I see Ofer nodding, that are really looking at what transportation potentially looks like in the next 5 or 10 years in some of the rezoned areas. So my comment in sitting with the parties that are involved in decision making is they absolutely are looking to make some decisions about certainly curtailing the amount of parking that are needed, that's required in these rezoned areas, and they're looking to put in some alternative transportation, whether it be scooters or more friendly pedestrian walkways and other ways in which people can get around.
In the same way that I brought up, East New York as a possibility, Coney Island has a great amount of space, if you're looking about that. Are you seeing investors talking about Coney Island?
I think Coney Island always has been attractive and always been its own sort of city within a city. I think what you're seeing in Brooklyn and the other areas that are sort of like, it used to be Williamsburg and Brownstone, Brooklyn, and now all these neighborhoods are kind of connected because Clinton Hill and Bed-Stuy and everything is connected. So you can actually walk in between the neighborhoods because they're so developed. And I think the lack of the ability to really sort of connect neighborhood to neighborhood with Coney Island still being removed, it's just not the same viability.
Okay, but don't we have a little similar situation with Red Hook? I mean, Red Hook is
to some extent, but Red Hook does have few connection points with the Gowanus and Carroll Gardens that enable it to be a little bit more relevant.
Now you bring up an interesting topic. Let's talk about the Gowanus. Okay, We have some development. You have Whole Foods. You have other stores.
Bonnie-
wait a
Bonnie
second.
can tell you.
You know, it just came up. It wasn't intentional.
No,
But I
think
mean,
there's
you did buy a
been,
large
you know,
property in
years
Gowanus.
of discussion about a framework that kind of meets all of these stakeholder needs. There's a strong desire to make sure that manufacturing and makerspace and kind of that vibe of the Gowanus is preserved. There's, you know, a strong desire for housing, but how much density and what the affordability makeup of that housing is going to be. You know, there's opinions very widely. I think city planning has been taking a very hard look at it and put together, you know, various frameworks to think about how to rezone that area. So, you know, I imagine in that 10 years from now, the Gowanus will be on a very different track than it is today.
And the council people that are involved, as well as many people on the political spectrum, are really doing a wonderful job of listening to certain components of
You
what
know,
developers are looking
If
for.
you bring up something which is important, look what happened to Lower Manhattan. Okay, people didn't expect Lower Manhattan to rebound after 9/11 like this. It's a live, work, play, and okay. And Brooklyn is the same thing. What originally happened in Brooklyn years ago, you have manufacturing again.
Right.
We had this hiatus that there was no manufacturing, and people can go to the distillery over there. They can go to the restaurants. They can have the new Russ and Daughter, and there's so much opportunities. And then if you really want, you go to the Cyclones, or you go to the Barclays Arena. It's still called the Barclays Arena, right?
Barclays Center.
Barclays Center. Okay, but that's why Brooklyn is so important, and I'm so happy that my friend Ofer was able to bring and produce today's segment with me. I'd like to thank Ofer Cohn, Annie, Bonnie, and Mark, and I'll see you next week.